The city of Los Angeles has signed an agreement with Honeywell to purchase 24 million N95 masks.
Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti with the big announcement last night about protective equipment on its way here and soon. Welcome to Inside the Issues. I'm Alex Cohen. I'm broadcasting to you from my home in Atwater Village. And our first guest this evening is the man who negotiated this massive deal with Honeywell. Gene Seroka is currently serving as the city's chief logistics officer during the coronavirus pandemic. He also happens to be the executive director of the Port of LA, which all goes to show what a busy person you are right now. We really appreciate your making the time, Mr. Seroka.
Thank you, Alex.
So I would love it if you could tell me more about this deal, how exactly you're going to get these masks here, where are they coming from, and when can we start expecting to see them here in Southern California?
Well, we had the ability to negotiate a contract with the Honeywell Corporation that calls for the delivery of 24 million masks over a 24-month period. Those N95 type masks are highly sought after, and much has been made in the media about what the marketplace looks like today and that it's broken as far as the supply chain is concerned. But for these particular masks and this contract that we have signed, it really cuts through three specific levels. Number one is proximity. These masks will be manufactured in Phoenix, Arizona, just some 6 hours up the I-10 freeway from us here in Los Angeles, and more importantly, our hospitals and the medical workforce. Second, it brings to us certainty. We have a specific production schedule that Honeywell will follow for delivery, so we'll know exactly every month how many masks that we are going to receive and how quickly we can get these out to our frontline medical workers. And lastly, affordability. As has been talked about quite a bit, these masks have been going for $5 and $6 per unit. We were able to negotiate a price specifically for the city of Los Angeles at 79 cents per unit plus tax. That also is great comfort to the hospitals because we will be passing this product along at cost to our frontline medical workers and emergency management teams.
Mr. Seroka, thank you for being so transparent about the cost. I always hate asking people about such money matters, but this sort of information is really important, especially at a time like this. And I'm sure members of our audience are going to be wondering, well, why is perhaps Governor Gavin Newsom looking to China for equipment when you're able to get it just down the 10 in what it seems like perhaps a much less expensive deal? How'd you do it?
Well, it's all been done through networks. And realistically, the mayor put us in this position because of our strong relationships up and down the supply chain. And it was our own Aveen Sharma who was chasing down leads, had a colleague who knew someone at Honeywell, and we began those discussions. And like most of our work in the supply chain business, we count on those relationships and introductions to try to strike a business deal. And with this particular case, we knew that there was no existence of a federal stockpile. And unfortunately, here in the state of California, it's so oversubscribed. So we decided to do this on our own. And in an effort with our strong buying power in the Department of General Services here in Los Angeles, we jumped on that infrastructure to see what we could do in the commercial marketplace. We've got some folks like John Trivgoda downtown LA with the Department of General Services that really knows this area of procurement. And we latched onto that savvy capability in order to create this opportunity for us. So network and having people with strong acumen in this area were really the keys to success.
Can you talk a little bit too about the distribution of these N95 masks? Because it's my understanding that you will be relying on technology and systems that you have used before in the past through your role there as executive director at the Port of LA to try to get these masks out to those who need them in as quick and efficient a way as possible. How will that work?
That's right, Alex. And as you may remember, we developed the nation's first and to date only port community system with General Electric Transportation and the Wabtec company. Basically, this system gives early visibility through a partnership with U.S. Customs of our overseas shipments that come to the Port of Los Angeles. We then asked Wabtec to develop a medical optimizer, which they stood up in record time in an effort to help us look at purchase orders from the hospitals, match those up with supply from manufacturers and distributors, and then be able to ascertain very quickly what the gap in supply and demand is. And that's where we step in as Logistics Victory Los Angeles to help find other means of supply. On your point of distribution, as we get these masks from Honeywell, which was a new supplier who came back into this medical space, we did not have to step over hospital orders or deprioritize those orders. We brought in a new supplier. And from there, the factory will distribute here to a warehouse in Los Angeles that we manage as the city of LA. And then through our technology, we'll be distributing those products directly to the frontline hospitals. We have a cache of inventory system so we know what the intake is and the output that's necessary for our frontline medical workers. This will combine not only the contract that we've signed with Honeywell, but so many donations that we've received to date and other products that we have procured. On the donation side, Harbor Freight, right here in Los Angeles, has been providing shields and gloves and other products. We received 160,000 face guards from the Apple Corporation, and so many others like Next Trucking, shipping giant CMA CGM, and even Operation USA, a nonprofit right here in Wilmington, California, has donated products so we could get them out to the front lines.
And all of that is great news. If I understand correctly, there's also a bit of a consumer element to all of this, as the mayor discussed when he announced this deal that you've been able to arrange, which is that individuals who are not necessarily on the front lines or who don't have a pre-existing medical condition, as I understand it, we should be refraining from ordering these N95 masks if given the opportunity to do so. Can you explain why that is and how it affects the supply chain for hospitals and frontline workers?
Right. All the medical advice that we've received so far, including from Dr. Barbara Farrar, our top doctor here at Los Angeles County Health Services, requests that we civilians wear masks that are reusable and washable. Holding on to these N95s that are at the highest level of certification in the United States should be reserved for those frontline medical workers and the emergency management teams that will frequently have to visit the ill and make determinations on what their medical conditions will be. So that's the recommendations of our top folks, including the CDC in Atlanta and many others. So we'll reserve those masks, and they've been in such high demand that supply cannot keep up with the requirements of our hospitals and medical workers. So therefore, this is a call out to the public. Please know that we are taking the advice of medical experts. We're reserving these N95s for the hospital workers, medical experts, as well as our frontline emergency management technologists, and the other masks that are washable, wearable, will be reserved for us citizens as we go to and from the grocery store or for those critical workers that are on the job every day today.
Mr. Seroka, I want to let you get back to your job as soon as possible because you've got a lot of work to do. But if you don't mind, I'd like to pivot for a moment and talk about your other big job as head of the Port of LA. I know that between trade deals with China and this global pandemic originating in that country, that has seriously affected what has happened at the Port of LA. Can you just briefly describe what traffic there has been like of late, how this pandemic has affected that very important part of Southern California?
You're exactly right, Alex. We've had two great shocks to the supply chain over the past several years. One, the ill-advised trade policy out of Washington that has really hurt global trade and our standing as representatives on that forum. The outcome of that trade policy has been an increase in imports, a decline in exports for 14 consecutive months, ending earlier this year, and a widened trade gap. I don't even think the strongest advocates would have realized that outcome. Second is COVID-19, and where folks in China couldn't go to work, they were trying to get on the mend, trying to curb the virus and eradicate its impact. We saw production dip to the lowest levels imaginable as far as manufacturing. Today, the port is open for business, and all of our 27 terminals and 270 berths are in operation. This is the largest port in the Western Hemisphere for containerized cargo. What you would see today, if you were looking at our port here in Los Angeles, is cargo flow is about 80% of normal volume for this time of year. And it's simply because you and I are not able to go out shopping or dining at our restaurants. The demand for goods is not as normal. And that's been recounted many times, but we see it here directly at the port. What we will also see is the country gradually opens with specific guidelines. We will see cargo start to come about again. But right now, major retailers are postponing, canceling, or even delaying orders because demand simply is not there. And for us on the ground, less cargo means fewer jobs. So those truck drivers, the longshore workers, electricians, and so many others are seeing an impact. And that's painful for all of our families who have business here at the port. Please remember, 1 in 9 jobs in Southern California today, more than 1 million people go to work every day during normal times with jobs related to this port complex. It is so vital to our regional and national economies.